Welcome to this episode of G220 Radio. This is Mike. Ricky had a tough day at work, kind of in the sun, the heat, with his remodeling project. Wasn't able to join us, but with us is Nathaniel Porter. Welcome, Nathaniel. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited. This is going to be an exciting interview.
Yeah. And our episode tonight is we're going to have an interview with Michael and Erin Miller from Discerning the Faith Ministry. And so really this is just a Miller takeover of the podcast with it. And we're just kind of, Nathaniel's going to be here for the ride with that.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I'm here is just for diversity, right?
Yeah, keep our diversity quota in check with that. I got to know Mike a little bit on graduation. We graduated right next to each other, which seemingly gave the SBTS registrar's office quite the hassle into making sure everything was correct from it. And they come from us from Virginia. And just to start out the show, just give us a quick testimony of how God has saved you. And then his wife is with us, Erin, and then she can go next.
Okay, well, thanks. Appreciate it, Mike, and Daniel. Appreciate you having us here on the show. It's great to be able to see you again, Mike. Especially, it's hard to believe that it's actually been 7 months since graduation.
I know.
So excited to be on the program tonight. It was kind of interesting because when we met there at graduation and they said, go stand behind Michael Miller. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm Michael Miller. And they said, no, there's two of you. So, okay. So we got while we're waiting there, we got to chat for a little while, when we're waiting to go in. But in terms of my testimony, I was raised in a Christian home, actually. My parents started off as Baptists, actually. So I was dedicated as a child, and then later on we actually switched and started going to a Presbyterian church, to a PCA church. So I actually was infant baptized as well, and so I figured I'm covered either way. But yeah, there was not really probably a day that I can point to that I can say that this is the specific day that I accepted Christ as Lord and Savior. But I grew to know Christ, and through my parents teaching us, taking us to church, and good leaders that were in those churches, Sunday school teachers. And if I had to pick a day, I'd probably pick sometime around when I was 10 years old. I accepted Christ when I asked my parents, actually on Memorial Day, what happened to people when they died, because a day like Memorial Day, you're talking a little bit about death and people who've given their lives and sacrificed it for the country. But as I grew, and I actually became very interested in theology as a teenager. Thought that I was going to be going into ministry full time right out of school. I was planning to go to Moody Bible Institute initially, but I ended up going to the Air Force instead, and did that for a little while. Was a flyer there in the Air Force, and you and I were talking a little bit about that, Mike, since we're also in the Air Force, and later on, after doing a career with the Department of Defense, I felt that God was calling me back into ministry, the same kind of calling that I had before. And so I decided that I needed to go to seminary, and that's when 4 years ago started that journey, and completed that back in December. So yeah, that's just a little bit, I guess, about me and my testimony.
Yes, I'm up.
Yeah.
So I grew up as a Catholic, so going through and growing up that way, infant baptism and all of that. But when I hit confirmation classes around the age of 16, I really started questioning why praying to, excuse me, why are we praying to Mary? Why are we asking for intercession when we should just have a direct line? So I did complete it mostly because that's what you did. And I continued to question and pray that the Lord would send me someone to guide me that way, and teach me more. And then I met Michael, and we were married shortly after. And during the first few years of marriage, basically got a firmer foundation. I mean, I believed in Christ. I believed in God, but there was just the full understanding of, you don't need all the saints. You don't need all the intercessions. There's no purgatory and all these strange things that the Catholics do believe. And so I was very grateful. And that was probably around 20, 21 when I really came to a full understanding of Christianity.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I know. I grew up Presbyterian and liberal Presbyterian, so I had the same kind of have to understand the gospel, not hearing it. So it's always good to, be with others and just, thinking through that. So can you tell us, so you have a ministry called Discerning the Faith. Can you kind of just give us a little overview of what it does, kind of the vision that you kind of set out for it?
Yeah, sure. So, I'll let Erin talk a little bit about the Susanna Project part here in a minute, but I mean, really the whole overarching need that we saw within the church, within Christianity, especially American Christianity, was that there was a need to train lay leaders within churches. That you took a look at. I think really what hit me hard a few years ago was when Limited Ministries published their State of Theology report. And you look at that and reading through that, and I thought, how can this be when we have Sunday school teachers and we have pastors in so many churches? Surely we can't be at this state if we have good lay leaders. And I think just thinking through that, I thought, maybe we don't have lay leaders who are really have really had the training in theology that perhaps they need to have that good solid foundation. I mean, I'm sure that you guys have been in churches like I have where the person just gets grabbed because, hey, you were willing to volunteer to teach Sunday school this morning, and so you volunteered and you took it and you maybe quite prepared, and so we saw that as a need and thought, we wanted to have a ministry that specifically helps lay leaders. So that's what really started kind of the vision holistically, which we tied in the Susanna Project, which is really more our international missions focus of the ministry. But kind of overarching, it's to help come alongside churches and equip lay leaders. Not just lay leaders, it could be pastors on staff who maybe don't have the opportunity to go to seminary, to come in and provide a plan to help equip them in their church based upon what they need. So that's really the vision that we have, is to have healthy churches that have a good solid foundation and who can, the church can be itself, and train from within as well. A lot of churches, I'm not quite completely against video teaching series, but I think that there's an opportunity that I think in the best case scenario, having solid leaders within the church who can teach versus having to just rely upon videos that you buy from a Christian bookstore is probably the best. And so being able to have that, we just want to go kind of for that. And talk about Susanna Project.
Yeah. So she's goes with the leaders, of course. It focuses mostly on pastors. Excuse me. So the Susanna Project was kind of a brainstorm at first. I was reading through Susanna Spurgeon's biography and learning about her book ministry that she had in England for underprivileged pastors. And they wrote her letters saying, this is what we make, this is the state of our library, and asking her for donations. And she would use her extra house money or get book donations from other people. And in the lifetime of her book ministry, she actually was able to send out over 200,000 books, mostly copies of Charles Spurgeon's works, but a compilation of everything that she could get her hands on. And she was very discerning on what she was sending out. And at that same time that I was finishing up reading that, we had 3 or 4 pastors from Malawi here for a translation and working on things at our church for taking back over to Malawi to train pastors there. And they said, we don't have resources. We don't have books. We can't get them. We are starving. They have no libraries and no ability or affordability to get them. So probably about 6-7 months after they were here, I sat down with Mike on a park bench and just kind of laid it out. And he was starting seminary, and he goes, oh yeah, hey, I just got another book and I can get it for 99 cents on Kindle too. So I just thought, wait a minute, Kindles? And we have these guys here who are begging for any kind of theology books and that. So we kind of brainstormed and went back and forth, and that's kind of the start of Susanna Project. So at this point, we've gotten together with several publishers to give discounts on most of their books that we've put a list together for. And our English version of a Kindle packet is almost 200 resources between systematic theologies and just other theological and preaching books. There's some things on, family?
Just life as a pastor, as a family, the qualifications for being a pastor and being an elder overall as well. So like On the Life of the Pastor by Alistair Begg and books like that.
So we have, excuse me. So almost 200 resources on our English books, book kits. And then we actually put one together in French and Haitian Creole to go down to Haiti, which I think had about 15.
That's 40 actually.
Oh, 40. That's a whole lot better. Yeah. And that went down there to a pastor. So we're already set up with 6 pastors with the Kindle kits between Zambia, Kenya, Malawi, and Haiti. So, and we're working on getting them in Spanish and more French resources as well.
That was exciting. When I first saw that on your guys' Facebook page after I met Mike, we had an episode with Ray Rhodes who wrote Susie, and on that's episode 324 for our listeners, and just him talking about that, and then seeing you guys being over there doing that, seeing it in a way was just awesome, cool, just because you hear about it, just like pastors in Africa are just trying to get resources and to the help, and other ministries, also are trying to get into it, but there's still that great need for that, and just even needs in, America for pastors to go. So I think that's what, is really heartwarming with it, and seeing that, especially, since I did have a luxury of a seminary education, and to see how that can, the need for others. Not everyone is in a church that can do that. So it's very exciting. Nathaniel, you have any questions? This guy's in there.
Um, what kind of training do the pastors abroad get? What all are we able to provide for them in the way of training? Like, it's definitely, I definitely see the very big need for all the theology books and everything, because I was listening to Coastie Hinn today talking about how the prosperity gospel just will roll into town in a lot of these places, like you mentioned, Malawi and places like that. And I think that the books would give them great defense against a lot of that, and being able to shepherd their people. Is there training as well that they're getting or able to get?
Yeah, so we actually started. We'd like to be able to do is provide live stream teaching when we can. So actually, we're doing it in Kenya right now. In Kenya, we have a group of pastors that are there that we have been. I'll actually do live Facebook video chat with them. It's incredible how much connectivity that they actually have over some of the countries, which before, 5-10 years ago, had no connectivity, and now they do. So I've had been take a little bit of a break, but for every Saturday for several weeks, I was actually doing a live chat with them via Facebook, with the pastors there in Kenya, and we're continuing that. We're trying to expand that a little bit. We were able to get them over some Susanna digital kits. Recently, we had a missionary that was through one of our partner churches that sponsors us, that had a missionary that they sponsor over in Kenya, who actually took over 3 of the digital kits and got them to the ministers. And right now, I'm actually finishing up a curriculum that goes hand in hand with those books that we provided to them on the Kindle, where we're actually doing some through Facebook chat, doing some discipleship with just a couple of them, a small group of them, going through a particular book. In fact, the first book we're going to start is The 9 Marks of the Healthy Church by Dever, and then just doing regular just teaching on walking through from anywhere from systematic theology to what does it mean to be a pastor, what kind of life you to live, what is your home supposed to look like as a pastor, as a church leader, and so we're trying to do that through technology, but we would also like to we have plans with FedEx as we can, perhaps do a pastor's conference as we're able to. Our church, where I serve as an elder, when we first got to the church, they were going almost every year and doing these pastors' conferences in Malawi, where literally you get 300 pastors who were showing up at the north, central, and southern regions. They were doing one in each of those for about 3 days, and about 300 pastors per conference in each of those regions. And literally, they would just set up tents outside, and these pastors come from everywhere, and they would attend these conferences. And so I think there's a great need for that. We'd like to be able to partner with mission organizations that are already over there in these countries, and be able to be a resource for them. And that's really one of the things that we try to do, even with the Susanna project, is that we don't want to necessarily come in and start something brand new. the pastors in Kenya that we're working with right now, they're over in a part of Kenya where there are no other missionaries, and so we've kind of started something with them. The one pastor that's there is trying to start a reform theological training center, for the pastors in the area. So we're trying to help him, source him, so that he's able to do that. But in other places that we've gone, where we have the Susanna Project kits, we have partnered with local missions organizations that are already on the ground, that are there long term. And one of the reasons for that is, one, we don't want to start something new, but we also want to have some sort of mechanism there that these pastors are have some sort of training that they're getting, some not just giving them books and dropping off. Here you go, because like you said, Nathaniel, the books are good; those are helpful, but that can't just be the only thing. And so we've tried to build and foster those relationships. The one, for example, I went to Haiti, was through one of our sponsoring churches, has a missionary there that they support. So it was through their mission work that they're doing with that.
Our goal is to be partnered with the different missionary entities.
Yeah. And we're real thankful for, Erin mentioned the ministry partners that we have from the publishers. Right now we have a partnership with Moody Publishers, with Crossway, and we are in the process of developing one with Finger of Truth Ministries as well. And so we're really thankful for each of those partners and their willingness to provide the books, et cetera, at a reasonable cost so we can get them.
That's really cool. I really liked what you said, kind of about the personal touch, I guess. It's not just like let's dump some resources here or there. Let's get messy. Some of the stuff you had mentioned about doing the Facebook live chats and stuff, and then another thing that really struck me is more of like knowing your role as a supporting agency and not so much trying to just getting all excited and starting up something brand new, like let's see how we can fit into our piece of the puzzle,
Yeah, we have to be able to work together and support each other. And there's ministries in other areas that they know the lay of the land already. So why go in and try and change what they've been doing?
Right.
Or counteracting what they've been doing. They have relationships and they know the people. And that's where we can build trust with them, because they already know the people and they can say, those are the people you want to be giving the books to. Once you get them trained, they're going to be able to go out and train and do the same and make sure that it's on locals and not just sending a bunch of United States citizens over to make churches and stay there. It's equipping the locals so that then they can build up and then they can send out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we're working on some, working with some of the seminaries that have been started in some of the countries like Malawi, to help their graduates. So when they graduate at the seminary, they typically have access to a library, albeit a lot of times small, but so that they have access to that theological library and this commentary after they get sent out. We're working on some partnerships with some of those seminaries in those countries to be able to give them a Kindle on the way out. So as they're graduating, essentially, here you go. Here's your theological library that you can take with you.
Wow.
So we're working on that.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're not just sticking to one small area. Like the pastors in Malawi, they're going up to Zambia. They're all over the country, and that's why the kit comes with a battery pack, whether it needs to be solar or just charged, depending on the power and the capabilities. That way they can the Kindle up for 3 months as they're going out and about and training. I mean, a lot of these pastors, they didn't even have a Bible. Guys in Kenya, he was teaching and they said, he was like, okay, open up your Bibles and they said, we have one Bible. So can you read that? So actually, when we sent the Kindle kits over to Kenya, we now made it standard that hard copy Bibles go with the Kindle.
Oh, cool.
If we can, because there's still a good need for hard copies as well, for sharing purposes and starter library of physical books if we can.
Yeah, so we include, right now we're doing the Reformation Study Bible with all the books as they go out. Come to the Reformation Study Bible, and we do try to provide 9 to 10 books that hard copy if we can, based upon who's taking them over there. We're very cautious about how we ship these in the country because sometimes, depending on who's going in, they won't make it all the way there. Somebody will steal them. So we typically try to rely upon people who we trust, who are already flying in. We'll provide them with whatever money that they need if they need to carry an extra bag, check an extra bag, and it costs them money to get them that, so they can carry it in. But we try to include about 8 to 10 books that can be the start of the church library for these pastors, because some of them who have them have said, as in the feedback, they've said, these are really good, but I can't share it with anybody in the church because it's all on the Kindle. So we said, well, it might be a good idea to be able to put some hard copy books they can keep in the church, they can give out to some church members to read, maybe some men that they're training as elders. So we're trying to do that as well. Typically, the 9 Marks books are pretty good for that because they're small, they're thin, they're good books, they have some good information. Easy to read. So, yeah, and as Erin talked about, we didn't talk about it too much, but I've got one of the Kindles here, and the nice thing about these new Kindles is actually they're waterproof, which is good for
cool.
But they do come with a power bank with them, as Erin mentioned. But it also, if they are out in the middle of nowhere, where they really don't have a lot of access to power, or they have a lot of rolling brownouts where their power just is not certain, we will actually put in there a solar panel charging kit that they can then charge up. I mean, the Kindle itself can last about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how much you use it. So between that and a power bank and solar charging, which is the power bank and that alone can go for months without needing to be recharged.
That's cool. That was one of my curiosities, is how do they recharge?
Yeah.
We tried to think through it all because, I mean, he travels so much that we kind of knew what we were going to need for just keeping everything going. But there were the thoughts of, well, if they can't plug in somewhere, they're going to need it some other way. So that's where we thought about the solar and picking the right ones that do charge and everything. We want this to be able to go anywhere. So all the corners of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of already mentioned like shipping. What has been kind of say kind of maybe the harder part of the project? Obviously you have the connections with, you said, Moody and Crossway. What have you found like just some difficulties trying to maybe like find pastors that need them, or is that just kind of, there's like a long list and you just can't, serve them enough?
Yeah, that's, I think probably the problem has not been getting pastors. There have been plenty of pastors. I get messages typically on social media, Facebook, on our Facebook Messenger, almost every day asking for books and resources. And so that hasn't been the problem and the difficulty. And in fact, it's probably the challenge are 2 things. One has been finding books that are in the languages that some of the individuals are requesting. They know enough English a lot of times to ask for books, but they really need the books in their native language, even if it's not for them, for the other pastors that they have there who don't know any English or very, very little English. So that certainly has been a really big challenge. A lot of the publishers that we've dealt with, Moody, Crossway, for example, they sell for translations. Most of the time, they sell the rights for the books to a foreign publisher. So if you want to get, for example, if you want to get MacArthur's Systematic Theology, that is available in French, and I think they just came out with German and Spanish. Mm-hmm. You have to go to the French publisher because Crossway doesn't do the translation. They sell it to a French publisher who then does the translation work themselves, and now they own the digital rights to that. And so being able to communicate with and to figure out who the publisher is and find a good contact within that publisher, that has been a big challenge.
The language barrier can be a little interesting too. So we had a list of books in English, and then trying to find them via their French name was interesting too. And sitting on there going, okay, I need to call my friend who is French, and then working through their holiday system and that she goes, oh, it's December. You're not going to be able, not until like March. Nobody's going to really be able to help you until March. That's just how they work in France. So I'm going, okay. And we still haven't gotten all of that done. And you have to work with if you're going to just order on Amazon, they have the DMR?
DRM, yeah, digital rights management.
So that gets a little dicey too on whether or not they'll even let you buy it. Even if you go to the French Amazon in France to buy it, you may not even be able to because it's a US Kindle.
Yeah. So
getting the raw form, the actual raw files is sometimes a challenge for those. And probably the other big challenge is with any startup ministry like this is finding sponsors who are willing to donate to the project. It's obviously quite a bit of expense to put together the kits and to get things going. And we're not working full time doing this. We don't have any paid staff right now for that. I'm still doing my career in Department of Defense as we're doing this in parallel to that. So finding sponsors who are willing to come on board and partner with us and join us in this effort has been probably the next biggest challenge.
Yeah. Just since you mentioned it, if our listeners would like to help out, how would one be able to do that?
So go into our website, www.discerningthefaith.org, or you can go to susannaproject.org. And on there's a donate page. And there's actually you can give a general donation, or you can actually give some specific donations to some specific items. We accept even in-kind donations for if you have a used Kindle that, hey, I want to upgrade to the latest and greatest Kindle. And maybe instead of trading it in for a $25 credit, that's all that Amazon's going to give you, you can send it to us, and we will we'll wipe it and we'll repurpose that to go out to one of the kits. And there's that. I think we have some specific things if you want to actually sponsor a pastor. So a pastor that
that's cool.
Already have that's on the list, and we will actually send them if they want to do that. We'll actually send them the name of the person that they're going to be sponsoring, where they live, where they're pastoring, and we'll provide them updates on a regular basis of how they can be praying for that pastor. And actually, it's actually a good point to mention about our process for that. Erin mentioned that that Susanna had a method that she did this. I think Ray Rhodes might even mention that. I know he mentioned it in the book. She had a method of, when she got these letters, she would look through and see, where they were ministering and what their actual need was, and to make sure that they actually had a need, that they weren't able to get books. We have something similar. We actually require somebody a pastor, in order to get on the list. They have to provide some information specific about their ministry. They have to provide a testimony. They have to agree to 4 statements that are on our website. So they can go on, if they're a pastor that wants to get a kit, they can go on and to SusannaProject.org, and they can scroll down about midway through that there's a button to click that'll take you to a form and to request a kit. And on there, they affirm 4 statements and some other information. And they actually have to have somebody who nominates them. They have to have somebody that we can verify that they know them, whether that's another missionary that's over in country, or a church that's sponsoring them already as a pastor over there. And that way we make sure that we just want to be as
diligent as we can.
Yeah, I mean, people are wanting to help pastors out over there, and we want to be faithful with the money that they're donating to go towards this ministry. And so we have a process to make sure that the pastor who's receiving it is somebody who's actually in need. They're not going to take this and not going to just sell it over there in the country and make money and do whatever with it.
So, talked a lot about the Susanna Project, and this is just, I think it's wonderful. You, at least it, as you mentioned, it's known the lack of theological studies, not in the United States, but in other countries, and just the need to have a good theology and leaders that can think wisely with that. And just even in our own churches, that problem with that, with it. And so, what are some other ministries? I know before you mentioned you guys did a marriage conference. So are some other events that you do to, as part of your ministry?
Yeah, we've always wanted. The reason why you mentioned the marriage conference, we had always thought that part of the ministry, that as needs came up to do, or as opportunities came up to do things like local conferences, we would like to be able to do that, because there's a lot of national conferences. These are the big ones that are always advertised on social media, and everybody knows about it, and everybody's going to it. And but there doesn't seem to be as many local conferences where churches are, getting together, and they're all saying, "Hey, let's put on a conference together. We all believe about the same types of things. We're in the same town. Let's put on a conference together where we can talk about some of these things and just engage with the culture on certain issues that are coming up." And so we wanted to be able to help enable. And again, going back to that support role, we see ourselves as an organization that comes alongside and supports other churches that are there. And so the marriage conference we did was one that was kind of unique, because we were talking to Ray Rhodes. I think it was at the G3 conference. I think we initially brainstorming this at the G3 conference.
Okay, yeah, brainstorming, but how we hit it off with Ray was before.
Yeah, that was before that.
Yeah.
But we started talking to Ray about, maybe we could do some sort of an event together, some sort of a conference. And so we talked about that, and going back and forth, I said, it'd be kind of neat to do something with the Spurgeons as the central of that of a marriage conference. And I think we said that nobody's ever done that before that we know of. That they, for a marriage conference, focus on a couple that are time tested. I mean, the Spurgeons are time tested, right?
Yeah.
Years, over 100 years. And so we got together with Ray. We were able to do that locally here. So that was really neat. And for your listeners, if you're interested in that, those will be up on our website here soon, the video and audio for those. But we want to be able to do that in places, is to be able to help enable having conferences. So we started here in our local area. And we'd like to do some of those as well, maybe address issues that people are thinking about, that Christians are thinking about, that affect their day-to-day lives. One of the other things that we do is provide seminars to churches to help train lay leaders. So there's actually a list of different topics that will come into the church and provide seminars on different variety of topics, anywhere from just foundational theological, all the way up to ethical issues. I've done several seminars in places just talking about how do you think about bioethics, for example, from a Christian worldview. How do you think about anywhere things from abortion to you name it within that field or that area of ethics. Certain things just affect people that I think people in congregations have questions about, but not anybody to really turn to. And so coming in and helping equip people, helping equip lay leaders within churches by doing these seminars. So that's one aspect of the ministry that we're doing as well, where churches will contact us and we will sit down with their leaders, the pastor, the elders, and find out, okay, doing a bit of an evaluation. So, where are you at? What do you need? What do you feel your biggest needs are? And we'll put together a custom plan for how we can come and teach on those different topics. And we'll do a variety of different formats, whether that's a couple of days or a Friday night, an all day Saturday, whatever it is, based upon the needs that they have. And that's we refer to that as our Institute for Theological Leadership. It's on our website.
Sorry about that. So yeah, that's now do you do that mostly kind of, I know you're kind of in the DC area. Is that kind of mostly where this happens, or are you willing to go, to wherever they need?
Yeah, as one pastor told me, have sermon will travel. So we have primarily been doing it here. We've done a lot at our church where I'm ministering, and but we're willing to go anywhere, really.
The need is all over. So
yeah. And we try to do it from a cost perspective. We try to do it based upon the lowest cost that we can for the church. So a lot of it's just covering our travel costs and putting us up somewhere that we can stay, whether that's in somebody's home or hotel or whatever.
So, are there anything that's coming out that you want to talk about? I think on your website, you have like a podcast you're looking at doing, or other. I can't remember what else I saw on there. I know I saw you guys trying to start a podcast.
Yeah. We're working on that.
He works full time.
Yeah.
So carving out just like you do, right? I mean, that's having time to carve out to do that. Yeah, we'd really like to get that going. And that podcast, what we envision for that is doing some teaching on kind of topics that people are talking about, and do some interviews with some leaders. We'd really like to do that. We've got some nuns that I know that we do have lined up. One with a missions pastor, who's actually my brother, that we did. That'll be the first one of those interviews, just talking about missions and churches. How do you, if you're a missions pastor, how do you create a vision for your church? How do you for missions? How do you mobilize the people within your church? And how do you put together a mission trip and figure out who should go and maybe what types of things that people need to prepare? So we did that in that interview, and that'll be coming out. We'd also like to do some interviews with a fellow elder of mine who is a church planter to talk about what we do for church planting. So those types of topics that we hope will help church leaders who will be listening to as they wrestle through certain issues, to just get them thinking about, how do I work through this or that. So that's what we're hoping with that podcast. And we're hoping that'll be starting sometime in August. So stay tuned if your listeners want to follow us on our social media sites on Facebook or Twitter. We'll be making those announcements here. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But there's some time off. So I think the other thing on there is probably the book reviews that we'd like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah, he's slowly working through his staff, so he just get bigger and bigger every week.
Yeah, I think I just saw that he received 2 new books just today on Facebook.
Yeah, that's right. But, when Westminster Bookstore, I got those from there. They had a sale. I got a little thing in my email. I heard a sale going on, but she always hates whenever there's bookstore sales.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say hates. I would just say that not even despise, but just kind of get very hesitant. Like, hey, there's a sale. I'm going,
yeah. My wife feels the same way at times, but sometimes she's as giddy as I am, so that doesn't always work out. Especially with like Christian book distributors and their 99-cent deals and stuff like that. So you're just like, oh, so yeah, my wife probably feels the pain in the same way with that. So you guys are on Facebook, and I would encourage our listeners to go ahead and like. They've put pictures up of boxes they've sent out. You can see the Kindle with, I think the ones I saw, you had the 9-mark set in there, and which is a good set. Although I've never actually bought a book, I keep getting them for free, and that's how I'm building my set on that.
Yeah.
With that. And so I guess we got about 10 minutes left with it. Is there anything else you'd like to share or to tell our listeners?
I mean, back to the book thing, there actually was one time he was in class for, what was it, one of the intensives. So he was up at Southern, and we had all gone with him, and we're standing in that new book section at the bookstore.
The academic arrivals.
He's just looking at it, and I looked kind of to my left, and I saw Al Mohler standing there, and he goes, "Oh, I want all these." I go, "You don't have the allowance for that." And Mohler just sat there and he chuckled. But his stack of books was like this when he went to the checkout, and it just was funny getting a chuckle out of Mohler from that.
So
yeah, that's right. At my expense.
Yes, at your expense.
If you ever come back, it's still there, even though they've gotten rid of the Lifeway. The new academic shelves are still there.
That's good. I'm glad they kept those.
Yeah.
Mohler was at his request, at Mohler's request. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Mohler mentioned shortly after that Southern would not be without a bookstore. Yeah. And so, although I haven't been able to go up and see it yet, but I have heard that's.
I saw the pictures on Facebook or Instagram, so it looks good.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who are part of it, kind of oversaw some of it. and it was a little bit of a hassle, but yeah, they're all kind of excited to have the bigger space with it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think just in terms of with the time we have, I think probably the thing that I'd like to say is if people are really interested, we'd love to just sit down and talk to people about the ministry. Uh, if they're here in the area or they're somewhere where we're going to be, and we typically keep people up to date of where we're going to be traveling on social media. So if you see we're going to be in your area, we live in Virginia, DC, Maryland,
West Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina. We get around a little bit.
Yeah, we'd love to just sit down if you're a pastor of a church and you're wondering how can our church get involved. You maybe like the church to sponsor a pastor who's over in a country, one of these countries who's on our list, or if they have a pastor that they are already sponsoring or they're going over and they're doing missions trips with. We'd love to be able to help them and provide one of these resources to them. And so if we'd love to take them a coffee, just sit down and talk to them about how they can get involved. Because again, we get every day, we get pastors asking us for books. And so we'd love to spread as many of these around as we can get to the pastors who are really they're hungry, they're thirsty for something. I mean, I can't imagine not being able to, in preparation for a sermon, having a commentary to be able to open up and just look, just one commentary, to be able to open up and look and say, okay, what's, I'm having some difficulty with this passage. What does this passage is? And you have pastors there who just want to be faithful expositors of God's word, and we see this as something that can help equip them for that and be a tool. And so some of these guys, again, as Aaron said, don't even have Bibles, and so we want to be able to get this to go along with their Bible.
Right, and also to consider some of the missionaries that are going out too. If they're trekking all over the place, we'd love to talk to them about possibly getting them a Kindle as well. They're doing just as much, and their funds are typically tapped out in a lot of ways in their own ministries. So we also consider that a way of equipping as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate both of you for taking time to come out and to talk about your ministry and just how, we work together to try to advance the kingdom of God, through the help of the Spirit, and just to hear how you guys are doing that. Hopefully, for our listeners, is encouraging to know that, Susanna's project kind of still lives on today, and to try to help in some small way to gain that, let pastors gain the theological knowledge they need to properly equip their flock and to help their leaders to be ones that can lead the church as we move in. We've already mentioned it before. You can, for our listeners, if you want to learn more, you can go to discerningthefaith.org is their website. They also have Facebook, just Discerning the Faith on Facebook. Does Susanna Project have its own Facebook page, or are they combined?
Yes.
So
Susanna Project has its own.
I think it's the Susanna Project. Is that?
I think it's that Susanna Project. Oh, yeah, no, I think it is the Susanna Project. And somebody else started taking Susanna or something else.
So on Facebook, to follow Susanna Project, the Susanna Project is their Facebook handle. And then probably they can get a hold of you both either on Facebook and through your website.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a way you can email us as well. You can also, any questions, you can email info@discerningthefaith.org as well. They can send an email. And again, all the different forms if they want to donate, if they want to request. We have a secure donate page on there, so it's completely secure. It's through a third party that we have, and there's also a way if they want to nominate a pastor, if they want to sponsor a pastor, there's a form on there to do that, and that'll get in touch with us as well.
So, again, thank you. Nathan, do you have anything? Nathaniel, sorry. I don't know why I called you Nathan. Nathaniel, do you have anything?
No, it was really exciting to hear about all you're doing. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
So that has been this episode of G220 Radio. Join us back next week on a topic to be determined for that. So thank you for listening, and hope everyone had a good night.